If you're watching this live, go ahead and fast forward a few minutes. I'm just doing some promo on Twitter and editing some things.
Who, me?
Nah, you're good, Catherine. Hold on. "30 seconds. Awesome. What's up, people? Hotep Jesus back. There's ever an uncomfortable conversation where we're going to have. This is definitely one of them. But welcome back, people who've watched my channel before, and welcome to people who's the first time watching my channel. But I have a very interesting, very interesting conversation I'm going to have today. With the mom. For people that know my jokes, Amal, a middle-aged white woman who I believe are, the catalysts and queens of our dominion, that is America, and I think they hold a lot of power. But I was on Twitter and I was trying to get some Black liberals, especially males, to come talk to me about race in America as it is today, and it's been quite difficult. And while I did that, this young lady, Catherine, pops up and mentions, she said, would you talk to, a white mom about what's going on in America and race and Black Lives Matter? So we first touched base via phone. We had a conversation, I believe that was yesterday, just to kind of like understand the problem. I didn't help her yesterday because I wanted this conversation to be as organic as possible and off the cuff as possible. But she actually, I'm not even going to tell you what the problem was. I'm going to let her go ahead and tell me, what the problem was. Catherine, how are you?
I'm doing good. Doing great.
Great. You're in Texas right now, or?
No, actually, I'm from Texas, but I am in suburban Chicago.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. So you reached out to me, and
Yeah.
what was the problem you were having?
So it's not so much of a problem as just a general frustration with just the dialogue that was going on that I would see between uh, not just with my kids, but with, being on social media and all of the back and forth between people. And I just kept seeing so much misunderstanding and not much listening, a lot of people talking and sharing opinions, but just not a lot of productive discourse, I guess. And I think what lit this off for me was my daughter, some of her friends, teenagers in particular, struggling with what to do. When you are being prompted by social media, which they're on Snapchat, they're on Instagram, they're constantly on their phones, they're getting all of this information. And so there was a meme, a photo of George Floyd. And we had all, of course, been horrified and disgusted and outraged by what had happened. And I think they were prompted via social media to be a part of acknowledging it and giving some sympathy. And so there was a meme posted, and it was the one that had his picture, and it said the phrases he was uttering as he was being murdered, which was so tragic. I can't breathe, I want my mom, all of that stuff. And it said, say my name at the bottom. And so in posting, my daughter, everyone, all these kids are trying to
Well, how old is your
show
daughter?
solid. She's 16.
16. Okay. So we're
So I
done
have
with high school.
I have two 16-year-olds, they're juniors, and then I have an 18-year-old who's getting ready to go off to college.
Okay.
So anyway, what happened is this kind of outrage mob of people their responses, instead of being like, thank you for your support, were, you know, get his name out your mouth, white bitch, all these different, I mean, stuff like that. I think one of them was just like, you're like a mini Karen, wannabe type of thing. And just, wasn't received, obviously, in the way that it was intended. And it wasn't just here, it was pretty much, a lot of that was going on with other teens. And it just started me thinking, like, what are we doing? How is this? So at the same time this was happening, juxtaposed with what's going on with these teens, is me reaching out, on Facebook, on Twitter, and seeing all of these people that I know and love, Black friends, uh, posting all of these different memes that say white silence is violence and silence is compliance, and all of this different stuff. And so having seen that, you think, well, okay, what should we say? Because obviously, and I reached out to some of my Black friends on Facebook, actually did a live chat with someone else, like a Facebook Live, that's been a friend of mine for years. And basically the answer that I got was, just tell your kids just to acknowledge that it's someone else's pain and just keep leaning in. And I thought, that's great, but they're 16-year-old kids, and when you're getting this onslaught of media backlash of people you don't even know, misunderstanding your intentions, and misunderstanding your support and your love, and you're wanting to be there, for being accused of, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to get slammed one way or the other. And so Blackout Tuesday came, and there's a lot of kids that didn't participate because they were like, well, I don't want to stir the pot again. And then it came back the other way. Why aren't you putting on your Blackout Tuesday thing? You must be a racist. It's like, it's just a little bit frustrating, because what we really want to do is show support. But if you keep getting hammered for it, then you start to think the best thing for me to do is just to sit back and take a minute. But then you have so many people, you're seeing the signs everywhere. They were sitting on the corners of the street, in our neighborhood, in our area, that just said white silence equals violence. And I thought, we need to talk about this. There needs to be a really good conversation between people who care about positive, productive discourse on what do you need to hear from us? What can we say? And also, since I'm on a roll, I'm going to say this other thing, which is,
go ahead.
Suddenly, all of a sudden, I have all of my white friends, many of my white friends, getting these little frames on Facebook, Black Lives Matter, and, Black Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter. And I personally love my Black friends. And I mentioned to you earlier, some of my Black friends are closer to me than my own not my nuclear family, but my own like family of origin. And so I don't get that kind of backlash from them. A lot of people are divided on the Black Lives Matter thing, but it was a sort of a point of pressure. If you don't post Black Lives Matter, then you don't care about Black lives. And I wanted to pass the message on to everyone that there is a reason why some white people don't say Black Lives Matter, and it has nothing to do with how much they care about Black lives. It's completely disconnected. And so that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you, and I'm super grateful that you gave me a chance on your platform to flesh this out, because I just think it's super important.
Yeah. So I think we first have to understand that social media is the jungle. It's a war zone every day on social media, especially when we are in the times that we're in now, right? Also, we have to understand that you're not exactly going to get high IQ individuals to conference with when you're on social media, which is why I'm so liberal with the block button. Um, but let's first talk about what's happening at the high school level
Right.
and what your daughter's dealing with from the Black friends. So on one side, she posted the meme, George Floyd, and on the other side, when she didn't post the black box, they thought she was complicit in white supremacy or racism or something like that.
Right.
So it becomes very confusing, right? You're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? And
Well, if I could, I don't
yeah,
mean to interrupt, but one of the things that's frustrating about that is that I don't want to make this about me. This whole conversation isn't about me or my daughter. It's about promoting and loving and supporting our Black friends and family and neighbors.
hmm
So I was afraid to even have this conversation because I think that's going to be what the next thing is, oh, it's all about you and your feelings.
mm
So I appreciate you,
well,
being
well,
sensitive about that.
I thought about that, right? And I disagree. Everybody's emotions are important when we're
Right.
dealing with this thing. Um, you come first, and I don't mean that as a white woman or race. Catherine comes first. Your daughter has to think about herself first. And if we aren't 100% comfortable in ourselves and we don't feel safe in ourselves, we can't help anybody else, right? So that's
That's
why
true.
that's kind of like why I want to help you first, and then we can talk about the Black community next, right?
Sure.
Um, so yeah, so with your daughter, and she's dealing with the high school realm. Um, we're dealing with a lot of emotions coming from the Black community and a lot of misguided emotions, a lot of miseducation of the Black community is what we're dealing with here, and it's not going to be easy when you're white. It's not going to be easy to kind of maneuver through this swamp, right? And
Right.
you know, so let's talk about some unhealthy ways to maneuver, right? I think one of the unhealthy ways that people have been maneuvering has been to attack other white people, right? Like that makes you safe, right? Like if your daughter would have came online and said, "Hey, white people are evil," then all of her Black friends would be like, "Oh, right, like you're a
Right.
god." But that's very unhealthy, right? It's
Right.
super unhealthy way, and it actually doesn't tackle the real problem here. And we all know that the real problem here is white liberal, socialist, communist indoctrination of the Black community
Right.
at the grade school and university levels. Um, I think in order for your family, and feel free to cut me off anytime you want to just like hop in or ask a question,
Sure.
but in order for you guys to do better, you would have to understand the condition of the Black community, and that's kind of like what I want to help you do.
Sure.
And then, so like Rolo, I was just talking to Rolo. He's like, I can hand you a prescription, or I can hand you the tools so you can figure this thing out on your own. I don't want to hand you a prescription today. I just want to give you the tools to understand, and how you move with that on your own
Yep.
is on you, right? Because I don't
Huh.
think there is a prescription. There is no prescription. You
No.
know, I myself get attacked by the Black community for some of the things I say, and
Right.
but I understand the condition because I am Black, and because I was also one of them. I was also under that um not so much white liberal indoctrination, but I had a very hateful way of looking at white people, so to speak.
Right.
And I had a lot of internal work to do for myself to get away from that. Um, so let's talk about the condition of the Black community,
Okay.
um, and how they view white people. So unfairly, white people and Black people have been placed in juxtaposition to each other by the lizard men, Illuminati, or whoever it may be, corporate, whatever you guys want to blame this stuff on, right? So
I
we
blame the
are
media. That's my go-to. The
okay. Beautiful,
mainstream media.
beautiful. I love it. Let's go with that because I think
Yeah.
they are wholly to blame. 99% of our problems are because of the media. COVID blew up because of the media. So I love that.
Yeah.
So
100%.
we are quote unquote sworn enemies, right? from a very young age, a Black child is, for example, we'll say this thing like, in a white household, when you reach a certain age, there's a conversation you got to have with the kids, and it's the birds and the bees, right? In the Black household, it's racism and police brutality, right?
All right.
And it is a conversation I think we have to have, especially with Black boys, on how to deal with cops the right way. And I think a lot of the problems in the Black community and problems with cops is because they just don't know how to deal. We don't have a protocol in dealing with cops. But we do have to have conversations with our kids about race. I think that there's a certain age to have that. Um,
Hmm.
I also feel it's unfair for somebody who's 16 to be propelled into having to join this conversation.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I think it's important to kind of like take a little push the rewind button back to me and my
Okay.
upbringing, which completely, you know, rolls into how I talk to my kids about race. And one of the things that I think is super frustrating is as the years have gone by, I'm not going to say my age because, as they say, if a woman will tell her age, she'll tell anything. But but when I was growing up, the standard operating procedure was we had Black friends in and out of our lives, and we just were told we don't see color, we see people. We kind of operated under the MLK, you know we don't judge people by the color of their skin, we're going by the content of the character. I was very much drilled into me as a young child. And all the people I watched on TV that I looked up to, I was watching Jeffersons, watching all these different, I could name a million of them, Cosby Show, this and that, and I just didn't know, I guess because I was told that I was to treat everyone with respect. And we weren't to look at color, right? That was the standard philosophy at the time.
Right.
Okay, so I've gone about my life in that way. I meet people, I love them heart to heart. I don't think about, you know, their background, their color, their ethnicity, religion, whatever. I just I just like people. I don't
Mm.
really dig into, the identity politics stuff. But here recently, over the last several years, I was on my blog page and I was talking and I said something about I don't see color, same kind of thing. I got
Mm.
hit by a mob of people who kept calling in allies to pile on, and it was like 800 people. It was ridiculous, telling
Mm.
me, how wrong I was to use that, I don't see color.
Mm.
That's so passe. That's not what we're teaching anymore in academia or whatever. And so I think what we need is like, what are the rules of engagement? What are the rules? Who writes the rules?
Mhm.
Where do we find them written? How do
Mhm.
we know how to engage in a way that's not offensive when
Mm.
the rules change,
Yeah.
arbitrarily from moment to moment by whomever it is who sets the new rules?
Mhm.
So, I think that's a frustration for all, not, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm
Right.
also speaking for a lot of people who speak to me who
Okay.
say, don't see color. I've gotten blasted for that. Other people have. And they're like,
Mhm.
I don't want to point out, you're Black, I'm white. Like, that's awkward. So how do you, anyway, I'm going on
Yeah.
and on, but I think that's important. Rules of engagement matter. It matters how we speak to each other, but I can't speak to you in a productive, loving way if I'm going to say a word that's going to fire you off, and then we can't talk anymore.
Right.
So,
So
yeah.
let's tackle that phrase. I don't see color. Right.
Yeah, it's
Um,
important.
yeah. Personally, I don't like it. Right.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. Right. But the syntax of it is dangerous. Not dangerous, but it's
It's
actually really
sticky.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's stupid, to use something of a low vocabulary. It's just stupid. Like, I don't see color. So what are you, colorblind? You a dog? You don't see color? Like, we all see color. Like, when you see somebody, you see the color of their hair, you see their weight, you see their age.
Right.
And there is, so personally, I say I'm racist, and I say I'm prejudiced. Like I prejudge people. A black dude comes in with a suit and, or a black dude comes in a hoodie, I am prejudging them. And human nature runs off of prejudging. That's how we survive. That's how we've
True.
adapted. So there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with having some sort of prejudice, right? But the phraseology of I don't see color, the syntax is just terrible.
Yeah.
It's better to just be more specific and say, hey, I don't judge people by their race, right? Like say that instead, right?
Right.
I don't see colors very outdated and stupid and whatever.
Well, I'm a mall, so there you go.
And right, but I think that's why these conversations are important, because instead of somebody attacking you online, it's like, let me educate you and say why,
Right.
this isn't something like, because when I see you, I see a white woman. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to judge you by race. I am going to judge you by your race. Somebody in this chat said, oh, I can understand Hotep Jesus now because he changed the way I talk. I subconsciously code switch when I talk to white people. It's just something I do. And I have some control over it. And at times I just don't. I just naturally code switch.
Right.
So, and that's because I see your color, right? Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with us, you see a black guy and I see a white woman. So let's bury that. Like we understand that, right?
Buried. Got it.
Yeah. So where should we go next? Let's get back to the kids. I don't feel like like I see some people bringing kids to protests,
Mm,
I see some people even telling kids about race and the racial dynamics. I don't talk to my kids about any of that stuff.
yeah.
They didn't even know there were riots in America until I turned the video game on and there were Black Lives Matter across the screen, and my 10-year-old son starts laughing, right? And because I put some things in context, like Trump, I've had to put him in a context for my kids. And sometimes we're around family, a little segue here. Sometimes we're around family and somebody will bring up Trump. And then my son Phoenix, who's like my twin, he'll look at me and he'll smile and be like, oh, here they go. Right?
Off to the races. Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. So I frame things when they're necessary. But when they saw the Black Lives Matter across the screen, they said, Dad, why is that there? So I first let their mom explain her angle, and then I explained the very practical angle of the fact that these corporations are afraid to lose money, and they feel as though if they put Black Lives Matter on the screen, then people will be less likely to attack them and boycott them, right?
Canceled. Right.
Yeah, it's like that cancel culture. And they get it, they still don't get it. Right. Like they get when I say they might lose money, but they still don't get the whole deep meaning and where all this stuff comes from. So that we've had
it's nuanced. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of nuance to it. And they're just not old enough to understand it because they haven't had much human interaction as a 10-year-old, But we've had to explain that to them. But the point of that is to say that I don't have those conversations with my kids. The most important thing is I want you to have confidence in yourself. Not because you're Black, not because you're a boy, but because of who you are on the inside and your skill set and what you practice on, So I feel like with the kids, it's all about STEM, right? Yeah, or STEAM, right? Science, technology, engineering, art, and math. As my master teacher, Kaba Kamene, would say, it's not STEM, it's STEAM. So that's what we focus on in this house. We don't focus on race relations and social studies and all of that stuff. I think there's going to come a time where they're going to need to have that discussion. And I have a library of videos. And when they're ready, I'm going to tell them, just hit play and watch your dad speak. And when you got questions, I'll answer. Yeah. A lot of my YouTube work is a library from my kids. When they come of age, they can come back and just look at what dad had to say about a lot of stuff and understand. But that's how I feel about this. I really, I know they say, oh, this white lady's making it about her and her kids. And, to address the kids first, I just feel it's unfair that a 16-year-old white girl who knows nothing about this world, nothing about race relations and even how America came to be, or how the races came to be at war, has been now forced into this conversation. It's unfair for the media to force people in this conversation. It's unfair for white liberals to force people in this conversation. It's unfair for Black people to force children, regardless of race, into this conversation. We are the ones that created this world, and the kids are going to inherit it. And it's the damn shame that we put our problems on kids to take on. Oh, it's just
100%.
terrible.
It's very disheartening.
Yeah,
It is.
so, I don't know how or what to even say to your daughter, right? Like,
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what I said. I mean, what I said to her was, there's a lot of pain. And when people are in a place of pain, they don't usually speak or behave rationally. They speak out of emotion. And I tell my kids, I think it was my grandmother. I don't remember. I heard it from, friends. Emotions make great friends, but terrible leaders. And so, a lot of times you just see so much emotion, and so much stuff is like negativity is born out of making emotional decisions. And it's pretty much all we do now, apparently. That's just the new modus operandi, is have a feeling, say what you're feeling, have someone react to the feeling with their feeling, and then, then off we go. And so my answer to my kids is, I can't give you a recipe for what to say or do. It's up to you to decide what makes you, feel like. If you feel like being quiet, that's fine. If you don't want to engage, it's okay. And if you do, be ready, for whatever comes, and grow a thick skin, and realize that, you can't take anything personal in life, because it's not always about you. Other
right.
people's stuff is not always about you. And my son and I were having this conversation, and I said to him, I want you to feel free to speak out, when you want to. And he said something I found to be so, like, such a bummer, is he said, I'm a white young male. Like, nobody wants to hear anything I have to say at this point. And so this is why I thought it was super serendipitous that you had Raul on before, because I just kind of, tuned in, and I was just like, yes, it was just all stuff that, I'm going to make my kids go back and watch that. But, well, except for the porn part at the end. We may cut it off at that point. But no, I mean, we have Christian values in this house. We have a culture of respect in this house, and I just don't want my son to think he's super intelligent. He's a great person, very, he's a humanitarian. He's a soft-hearted guy, to believe that what the media and the culture is telling him is that as a white male, we need less of you and more of this, the others. And it's just like, no, I 100% disagree. And I want him to know that his voice matters just as much as anyone else's does, and not to be stymied or silenced by anyone, regardless of what their opinion is about, whether his voice counts or not. It just makes me passionate.
So I want you to hold that thought about the white male, and I want to address something. And this goes for everybody. If you don't got tough skin, get your ass off the internet. Get off the internet. The internet is not for the weak. At least the social media aspect of it is not for the weak. So, for example, my daughter, I asked her, like, you be on Instagram? She was like, I watch, I don't post, right? I think what happened was one time she posted something, and, kids, made fun of it, or just, had just commentary that she just didn't like. So she's like, I don't post anymore. And I'm like, cool, that's your decision. But I feel like kids have to deal with some sort of struggle. They got to deal with, some sort of bullying online. I think it does build character. Like, I don't like that they have to deal with this particular topic to be bullied about, right? Because I think this is an adult problem. It's not a kid problem. But at the same time, if my son came and he's he said, Dad, I'm being bullied online, I tell him, well, delete your account, you little bitch. That's why I would say it to my son. I would say it to my daughter differently, but me being the toxic masculine man I am, and I'm using that term loosely, obviously, because, I talked to Rolo earlier. We know what
Right.
that means, but that's how I would say it to my son. I'm like, yo, if you can't take it, just delete your account, bro. Because when you get on that internet,
Yeah.
it's a
It's
jungle.
WWE. It's a slugfest.
It's
No
a
doubt.
slugfest. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're
Yeah.
not ready to join that, the second option is this: niche out your following, right?
Mhm.
So, but this has been even hard too, right? So you could, let's say your following was on it all in the tech world. Well, in the tech world, they're like, where everything stops, STEM has to stop. And now we're just going to worry about Black lives, right? Like Black Lives Matter. And I'm like, yo, you don't got to stop tech to talk about Black lives, right?
I hate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not good.
So it's become so pervasive, um, and omniscient that it's like, even if you're like, let's say you niched out your following and you just talk about fitness all the time, people are like, you're not going to talk about Black Lives Matter. I was like, nah, I talk about doing sit-ups and squats. Like, why would I talk about that? Right? Like,
Right.
so
Because there's pressure, though. There's pressure. So much pressure on me and, people like me. There's so much pressure to speak up, say something. If you don't say something, you're a racist. If you don't, it's just, but you're right. I mean, you have to be able to say, well, I'm not going to, because that's for another time or another day. And if people who know me decide that I'm a racist because I'm not engaging in the topic du jour in the way that's acceptable to the people who actually know me, then what else can I do? Other than show sympathy, show compassion, show love, and show support. I can lift you up only so much because my experiences are just my own. So I
Yeah,
think, does that make sense?
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the
So
pressure.
there is a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure, and we want to engage, but you don't
Right,
want to get your butt handed to you.
right. So I think the first quick answer is use that block button. Block, block, block. Do not feel like you. So I tweet often. I'll say, who did you give your energy to today that didn't deserve it? Right. So
Mm,
when you share your message and somebody comes with these invective comments, hit that block button. Don't even think about it, or some people say, oh, you're weak if you hit the block button. Fuck you.
no, no,
Hit the block button. You don't have to deal with anybody's energy. Like I say, my timeline is a dictatorship. It is not a democracy.
right.
The other thing is, I think we have to learn when people are criticizing from a place of wanting to better us, as opposed to just forcing their way of thinking on us, right? We
That's
know
good.
when somebody is inquiring because they're being sarcastic, or when somebody's inquiring because they actually want to learn.
Right.
So when somebody's coming in there being honest and saying, hey, I don't like what you're saying, it would be better if you did this, I think, okay, this is something we can engage with. We can have conversations. They can be civil and decent. Awesome. Let's talk about it. Correct me. Tell me why I'm wrong. And let's work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we have to get good at detecting that from the person's first comment. Is this person coming from a place of honesty and decency and wanting to learn? Or do they need to be introduced to the block button?
Yeah. Hello, Mr. Click. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Back in
Yeah.
our day, it was hang up, right? Yeah,
Yeah. As we pointed out earlier, I'm a mall. So
yeah. So let's talk about the white man thing,
yeah.
right?
Whew.
So,
I've got two boys.
mm,
Um, and obviously the big boy, my husband.
mm-hmm.
Shout out to Dave, the best guy on the planet.
Shout out to
You know.
Dave. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. He's awesome.
So
He's my
important.
mush. Yeah.
So important to have that father figure in the household, and I love that. The love you just gave him right there. That's beautiful. The nuclear
Yeah.
family. I love it. So again, part of the propaganda machine is to demonize the white male. Demonize the white male.
Yeah.
So in order to understand this dynamic, I have to tell this story that I tell often when we touch this topic. And there's two stories in America that we have to go and research. One of them is from the very inception of America. People like to say Black people were slaves in this country, and I just want to say that the first working class individuals of America were indentured white people. Um, and a lot of them defected to native populations. And what happened was white men who didn't like being ruled by this oligarchy or plutocracy at that time, was very oppressive. Um, they defected. They went to go live with the natives. They're like, you know what, screw y'all. This shit is trash. I'd rather go live in the woods with the natives. They have better buildings than you do. They have better amenities than you do, right?
Right. Yeah.
The natives were living very well in comparison to the early colonies. When we look at the early colony of Virginia, we see cannibalism because there was food shortage, right? These people didn't know how to take care of themselves. So white men were defecting to the natives. So what happened was the oligarchs got smart. And what they said was, look, we'll give you a better way of living if you come back with an Indian head, or, if you, kill a few, or, and that's the some of the beginnings of racism in America is between the native population and the white lower class that came over from Europe, be it the Italians, the Irish, or whatever you have. So that's the first story I want people to go look up, is the union between the natives and the white man. He wasn't inherently racist. Now, the second story, we have to go to the socialist workers. I don't want to say party, but we got to look at that era. And we have to talk about like the Ludlow Massacre, right? So I guess there's three stories here. So I have to tell the Ludlow Massacre story. So the Ludlow Massacre story starts in Colorado. Are you familiar with that story?
I'm vaguely familiar with the story.
Okay. So basically what happens is they're working, I want to say railroad, some sort of industry. I can't remember the industry, but
mining, maybe.
Mining. Yeah, I think it was mining. Yes, mining.
Yeah.
So the part of the deal was the corporations provided housing. And these people were like, well, the conditions that we're working under are bad. The pay is bad. We can't feed our family, da, 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 da. It's like, we want things to get better. And the corporation said, well, how about I just kick you out of the housing? You won't have housing anymore. So these people were like, fine, we don't want your housing anyway. It sucked to begin with. So they set up a tent city in the mountains. And when they set up this tent city in the mountains, the National Guard and the Pinkertons were called in. And this is where the massacre occurs, where they murdered men, women, and children. The National Guard, the United States National Guard. Actually, it was the National Guard of the state, but we know how that works, right?
Yeah, right.
Murdered white men, women, and children because the corporation paid them to do so. Now, I say that because we have to look at the fact that white people were oppressed in America too, right?
Well, I have Irish ancestry, so all the way down the line on both sides my family is all Irish immigrants. So I've heard a lot of stories about that. So
yeah, you know all about that. Yeah,
I do.
So when socialist workers' parties started popping up, you had your white parties and you had your black parties, and black people wanted conditions in the corporation to be a certain way, and white people wanted there to be a certain way. And what the two parties realized were, yo, we got the same enemy. Let's join forces. So a lot of them started having these underground unions, and they started coming together and sharing ideas, and the whites and blacks came together, right? Then what happened, the corporations got smart. They said, oh, you guys are working together, huh? Well, how about this, white man? How about I pay you more than the black man and you stop unionizing with the black man? And this is where we have another occurrence of racism being forced or coerced by the corporations.
I see where you're going with this.
You see where I'm going with this, right?
I do, of course.
So fast forward to 2020, what we have is, again, the corporations are forcing a racism. The problem now is the white man is now the target. The white man is evil. It used to be the black man was evil. Now what happens is the GDP of America is grossly relying upon black entertainment. If you know anything about America, our number one export is entertainment. And a lot of that is created by Black people. So they said, you know what? Slavery has evolved. If we give these Black people inclusion, we can still own the rights to the material, the royalties to the material. And if we
Mm-hmm.
say white men are bad, we can make them our ally, right? So that's what the corporations are doing. And they're realizing that white men aren't as valuable. So that's why the white man, right, correct, exactly. Because who's to determine who provides what value, right?
Exactly. Yep.
But for them, value is based upon this entertainment industry, which I loathe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're at now in America, where the corporation is starting to say, hey, we're going to curry favor from the Blacks, right? And that's why we see them posting the Black box and posting the Black Lives Matter and so forth, because Black people have gained so much power in this country and have gave such a large voice in this country. I mean, we propel culture. So then now there's a concerted effort to kill white people. There's a concerted effort to lower the white numbers. I suggest people checking out Dr. Kaba Kamene, reaching out to him. Maybe I'm going to bring him back on and talk about this. But I forget what the time period was, but he said within, I think, I'm just going to take a guess here. Don't quote me. He said like white people are going to disappear from this planet in the next 100 years, right? And it's a very scary place to be. Alt-right even carries this talking point and says, hey, our numbers are dwindling. And I think what he said was, and China's an example of this, but he says if a certain race of people doesn't have 2.3 children apiece, then they run the risk of being extinct.
Right.
And I think that the oligarchs have pushed this and helped this, but I think that they are trying to kill white people. As crazy that might sound.
It sounds crazy. I'm not going to lie. It does sound crazy. It's not a prospect that I enjoy, discussing because for obvious reasons. But I see what you mean, and I think there's a lot of it's hard to talk to your kids about things that when they are getting information from other angles. And I do talk to my kids also like overpopulation is a huge problem. I may not have kids because of stuff people are telling me. And I'm thinking to myself, what a manipulation, is they're hearing that, you're people like you are the problem. The reason why we're in this mess is because people like you did this to people like them, us and them, us and them. And it starts to create a feeling of maybe I shouldn't even reproduce, maybe I should even just, maybe there are too many people like me doing bad things to people like them. And it's a mind manipulation. It starts to affect the thinking of people. This whole new thing that I've been watching on social media, where there are actually people, I don't even know who would do this, being coerced or manipulated mentally to bow down and kiss the boots of Black people. And I'm like, I have a friend and we were talking and I said something. She's like, if you ever did that, if you ever like even acted like you were going to bow down before me, I'd kick you in the chin. It's so dumb. Who is doing that? Like, who is convincing people to hate themselves to the point that they don't want to procreate or they want to kiss someone else's boots? And it's just like, ugh, I just, it's mind blowing to me that whole, you should feel guilty because of who you are, because of what you look like. And I'm like, isn't that a crazy irony to tell people because of what you look like, you're less than me, bow down. And I'm like, I thought we didn't like that. I thought that was a bad thing. But some people are co-opting that mentality, turning it around and saying it's justified. You owe me that because of what happened in my past. I'm going to visit that on your generation. And I have zero tolerance for that.
Yeah.
You won't find me bowing or kowtowing to anybody except the Lord God himself.
Right.
So, I'm passionate about telling my kids, you don't owe anyone your fealty or your, don't be subjugating yourself or getting down on your knees for anybody but Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
So that's the way I look at it. And honestly, what I think is so bizarre is people demanding other people take a knee in the exact same posture of this monster of a white man putting his knee down on the neck of a black man, and we're supposed to do that, and that's supposed to do something for racism? Is that just me? But is that not a weird position that they want you to take? For me, it's just it's like, what? I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't get that. I don't. And not only do I not get it, it angers me.
Mm,
It makes me angry,
mm,
because when I see people, and I blame, here we go. I'm getting on the soapbox. I'll probably get a little taller. When you expect, what do you expect, white parents? What do you expect when your whole uh when the whole purpose that you think that you have in raising your children is all about university, putting your
mm,
kids in a university? We got to get into the best school with the best this, the best that, the best of this, and they have no idea what they're sending their kids into at a really, their frontal lobes aren't even fully developed, and here they are going into this culture where we have all of these, dare I say it, whole hippie holdovers sometimes, these people in academia who are pounding white guilt and fragility into their minds. And it to me, the frustrating thing is they're all about diversity, 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 and is our strength, which I love the idea of diversity of people. What I have a problem with is a lack of diversity of thought in our institutions of higher learning.
mm,
And I think that's a huge problem that
mm.
adults are not addressing. And I've talked to parents, I'm like, what school is your kid going to? And they're like, they're going to, I'm not going to say the name, such, I don't want to get in trouble, but they're going to this certain school. And I'm thinking to myself, ooh, good luck with that.
Indoctrination. Yeah.
Good luck with that, because they're going to come out completely different. Their culture, their cultural, their values, their integrity, everything that you've trained them up in the way they should go, they get, it gets convoluted, and they
Mm,
come out the other side feeling guilty, feeling angry, feeling oppressed, feeling this, feeling that, all these things that are not real.
mm,
The I'm not a favor of the third wave feminism movement. I don't like what that's doing to our young women, older women, I mean, to women in general.
mm-hmm,
And so anyway, that's my biggest issue, is that I just feel like we're sending them off to college, and then we can just be like,
mm,
there's my, job done. I did it,
mm,
woo, and I can take my foot off the gas. No, 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 you
mm,
can't.
mm,
Because what's happening now is they're coming out the other end of the chute with a whole bunch of newfangled ideas that are completely contrary to what they've been taught and raised up in. And it's hard to take the toothpaste and put it back in the tube once
mm,
that is unleashed.
mm,
And I see that as a problem, not just among white kids, it's just across the board.
mm,
Is there, this is my big goal, get my kids into college so that they can spend 3 years getting, mind scrambled. And so
mm,
I'm super judicious about where my kids are going to get their education, because I want,
mm,
it's not about race, it's about in intellect. It's
mhm,
about coming out with your feet on the ground, with your foundation intact, and without a bunch of distractions. I want my kids to come right out of college and start learning how to make a living and live a good life and raise a family and be a productive member of society. So
mm.
I'll step off my soapbox
Yeah.
for a second there, but
I love it. I love it. You're not wrong in any of what you said. So you gave me this new thought, which is diversity is erasure. And another way to eliminate white people from this planet is through miscegenation. And they push a lot of
right.
white and black couples on us in the media and so forth. And they want to force white and black people together. But really, that's an elimination of each race, because even with a mixed child, you'll find them say, like the other day, I tweeted out white power to white people, black power to black people. And some mixed kid goes, well, I'm going to take power from both of you. Right. So then you create a third race. Right. And that third race is what they're trying to create, because then it's easier to infect the hive with, some sort of doctrine. You're creating that hive mind. They don't like, you know, for example, I talk about federalism, and federalizing the United States of America. They don't like a bunch of little tribes and factions, because then people get to live on their own rules, and there's different cultures, and that's true diversity, right?
Right.
And they don't like that, because then they can't infect you with your doctrine.
Who is they? Who are you? Who's they you're referring to?
The Illuminati lizard men.
Okay, so that's
I,
what
I
lizard.
can't
That's
I
the
can't
lizard
say.
men.
I
The
can't say,
Illuminati
because
lizard men.
the black vans might pull up outside. I can't say.
Okay,
They'll come down
you're
on
going
me.
a little Alex Jones on me there, but okay, I'll
Yeah.
ride along with it.
Yeah. Let's just say the Wizard of Oz.
The powers that be.
The powers that be. Yes. And so through miscegenation, they want to eliminate different cultures, and they want to make people commingle. But when
You have a
people
problem with that? You think I didn't know that. You don't think mixed race couples is a good idea?
I think that you should have the freedom to do whatever you want. It's
Okay.
different when it's forced and coerced, right?
So it's manipulated into thinking that that's the best way.
Correct. Right.
I see
Right.
your
Right.
point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're not, okay, I just want to be clear, because I know people that are watching this know my feeling about it is, I think you love, if you love a black man or you love a white woman, more power to you. But I
Mm.
think what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is that and I've noticed a lot of this in advertising and, TV, everything's, it's all a kind of setup to show people what they think you should be, what you should be following. It's not
Mm.
just about cereal anymore. We're not
Mm.
trying to, convince you to eat the right cereal. We want the right people together to do the right thing. And
Mm.
that's not lost on me. But I just
Mm.
wanted to clarify, you're not against mixed race couples.
I'm
You just,
I'm agnostic on it. I'm in the middle
okay.
somewhere. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't really
Fair
know
enough.
I really don't know what to do. I feel like, if you want to date a white woman, date a white woman. Like, I'm not gonna be like, you bastard, I hate you, like Uncle Hotep, his wife is white. That's my homie, right? Like, I'm not gonna
Okay.
judge you any different. I just
Okay.
think when it's forced and coerced, there's a real problem there. And I know it
I
is
see that.
forced and coerced. For example, some magazine, I want to say it's Time, but they showed what the future human being is going to look like, and it was a mixed race looking individual. And that's really what they're
Oh.
trying to do. They're trying to create one race of people so they can enslave all of us at the same time. When you have different cultures and different factions, it's much harder to control all those people, because they look at life differently. When you have people that all look at life the way you want them to, then you can brainwash them to do whatever you want. And
Homogenous.
yeah, that's what they want.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what they
That
want.
is really interesting. That's going to send me down a rabbit hole probably, but I'm going to do some digging on that, because I think
Hmm.
that's a fascinating thought process.
Yeah.
It really
So
is.
in order to understand the white man, you have to understand the matador and the bull, right? So the matador and the bull sees red and he attacks, right? So in this case, red is the white man and the bull is black people. And this actually, quick segue, in Spain, they have the running of the bulls. The running of the
Yeah.
bulls is actually,
Pamplona. Yeah.
yeah, the running of the bulls is actually a ritual, talking about removing the Moors from Spain, the black rulers of Spain. That's what that
Hmm.
is a ritual of, running them out of the country, right?
I
Um,
did not know that.
yeah, because the Moors ran Spain for, I want to say, at least 300 years. And that ritual of the running the bulls is removing black people from the upper class and rulership of Spain.
Right.
So this bull thing is very, relatable. So what happens is, if I can hold up a picture of a white man and the black person reacts, I got you in a Pavlovian experiment,
Hmm.
and I talked about this on Alex Jones, where Pavlov's experiment with the dog is, if you show a dog meat, he starts to salivate because he knows he's going to eat. And if you ring a bell, he just looks at you like, okay, you rung a bell. But if you ring a bell before you feed him, eventually when you ring the bell, he's going to salivate because that means food. So, and today, the media is practicing the same experiment on us. We're all being conditioned to some point. So earlier I saw a little girl walking down the street. She couldn't be any more than 9 years old, I want to say, a little black girl. And in the video, it was a white female cop, and she was walking up to this black family. And this little girl starts breaking down, crying out of fear. Yeah. And it was a white lady cop, and she was like, "Oh my God, like I'm not here for that. I just want to come and say hi and da 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 da." But this little black girl was terrified of this
Wow.
white woman, you know what I mean? Or this cop, I should say.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of conditioning and psychological work that's being done on people for various motives, for various reasons. A lot of it is to cause confusion and just incite fear. Because once you got fear, you can control people. And that's what a lot of this is about.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I agree with you on that for sure.
yeah. But the thing
I see
is,
that.
if white and black people unite, things would be a lot different. And they don't want that, because every time white and black people have united, the oligarchy has lost. Like I told you in the stories of the
Right.
natives and the Socialist Workers Party, so on and so forth.
Hmm.
And like I said in the beginning, I didn't want to give you a prescription. I just want to kind of diagnose the problem, so you can better understand it. Shout out to Pamela with the super chat. Appreciate you. Hit us off with a 199 super chat. Thank you very much. But yeah, so that's where we are with the miscegenation. Now you brought up another topic when you're on your soapbox. We talked about the media. We talked about
We talked
the
about higher learning.
okay, right. So let's talk about the higher learning. I don't want to spoil this. So what I'm going to say is there's a Thaddeus Russell interview with myself and I. Thaddeus Russell is a college professor, university professor. In fact, he specializes in African American studies. This is a white man. He specializes in
Right.
African American studies. I want you to sit down and just watch that. And he's going to
Okay.
talk about the university, and what's happening. But the university takes a large blame in the condition of black people. So when you think about how a little girl at the age of 9 could see a cop and become fearful and start crying, how they can show a picture of a white man and black people automatically get angry, and then you go online and you type Black Lives Matter, don't you see how it starts to spiral out of
Oh
control?
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that's where we are in America. So let me explain black people to you. Um, I want to do this as concisely as possible. Um, from the time we come out the womb, we are taught white people are evil. We are taught to stay away from white people, maybe, but then at the same time, we are turned into white people. Black people in America, and me and Thaddeus Russell talk about this. Black people are technically white people as far as culture. Our culture was stripped from us, from the day we were, brought to this country or enslaved on this continent. But we are. Damn, I don't want to roll. I don't want to
Why
give it
not?
spoilers,
Get
but
in there. Jump
all
in.
right,
Get in
fine.
there. I can handle it. I'm tough.
So Thaddeus tells a story of the NAACP is going to talk with some black folks down south, and the black folks down south want equality from in the school system, right? And they say we want more money for our schools, not schools, because it was segregated, and so
Right.
they wanted to go to government and get more money for our schools, for black schools. So the NAACP comes down, and to make Thaddeus's story short, they said, no, we're not going to do that. What we'll do is we'll fight for integration to bring you into white schools. And the reason is because they wanted to destroy black culture, and turn black people into white people. So now you have to learn from a white woman. For example, we were talking earlier with Rollo Tomasi. All boys are basically taught by women their entire life, right?
Right. Right.
So, growing up, 90% of my teachers were white women, right? So
Me
you're
too.
right. But it
I'm
works
kidding.
for you,
But
right?
yeah, yeah.
Because
I
I
was
think
tongue in cheek. That was
right,
tongue
right,
in cheek.
right.
Yeah.
But I think it's great, for you, because I think white women need to teach white women, white men need to teach white boys, because that's where we are culturally. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to destroy Black culture and turn Black people into white people, and they succeeded in doing that. And Thaddeus goes into more detail, but they succeeded in doing that by integrating and bringing us into their university, so that they can brainwash and teach us the social studies and teach us their version of history, and indoctrinate us, and like you were talking about before with the universities and at that level.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, so when you look at this child, and they grow up and then they hit Facebook, we're dealing with a child who has been completely brainwashed by white liberals. So I said this in my periscopes. I'm like, you got to feel sorry for Black people, because they haven't been shown another way. People like me are blackballed. The gatekeepers keep me out of the media. And
Why? Why do you think that is? What's the reason?
because I
Because you
will,
don't go along with it, or
well, yeah, because I would release them from that bondage of that mentality they have now, where white man bad, Trump bad, right? Like, I would release them from that bondage. I would bring them to a place of independence where they can grow and take care of themselves without wanting the approval of white people, without wanting the white man to get on one knee, right? Like what white people do online shouldn't, what anybody does online shouldn't, affect how you go about your life. Like, your happiness shouldn't be dependent. This transcends race. Your happiness shouldn't be dependent upon another individual. So what we have are Black people where their happiness is dependent upon white people, right? And they know that
that's interesting.
so they know if they put me on TV even for 5 minutes with the Black crowd. For example, Ebro from Hot 97 has already said, he tweeted out, "You, Hotep Jesus, are blackballed from Hot 97." Now, I know you don't know what Hot 97 is, but Hot 97 is the New York radio station for Black culture, Black people. It's the hip hop radio station. So I don't have a voice to my own people because you have a white guy like Ebro who gatekeeps, right? And his
Right.
white co-star, Peter Rosenberg, who gatekeeps, right? So I'm not
Right.
even allowed the microphone to speak to my people. I have to get lucky and hope they see my YouTube, right? For
Mhm.
example, we were talking with a very famous rapper online the other day, and my homie called him Hotep, but he meant it as a term of endearment. And the rapper was upset. He was like, "Yo, why'd you call me this?" And he was like, "Yo, what are you talking about? This is a good thing." He was like, "Well, they told me 2 weeks ago that a Hotep is somebody who's trying to profiteer off the Black community, is bad, blah, 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 blah." So the white and the Black liberals do a good job of demonizing me, so that people won't even listen to me if they heard me, or heard.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt, but
go ahead.
I think it's important for you to ask me or to wonder what I think or what I know about Hotep or what it is.
Tell me.
Well, I'm glad you asked, which you didn't. But I did my research, obviously, because I'm not just going to engage with anyone on the internet and put my name out there and put my ideas and stuff out there unless I know, what I'm dealing with.
Right.
So I read up on, on Hotep Nation, and I saw the tenets of, Hoteps, and I mean, I thought it was really interesting. A lot of it I was kind of like, okay, it sounds good. It sounds like, cultural values, um, a lot of the same values that I have, are, my family first. And, I don't know where you stand as far as religion and God. Doesn't matter to me. I know where I stand. And I know that I stand for family values. And I think the more that we are connected familially, the only thing I couldn't get on board with was the eat to live to eat thing. Because
Mm.
I'm from the South and I just eat whatever I want. Uh, which, maybe I need to, get a little bit more down with that. But I thought it was really fascinating. I think everyone should look at that up and read about, what Hotep Nation is and what, I mean, I've been following you and following Uncle Hotep and listening to some of the things you say, some of which I'm just like, no.
Right.
I don't go along with that. But a lot of it I really do respect. I respect what you're doing, and I respect, your reason for doing it. And I respect you having a voice and a platform. And it just surprises me. I'm just going to say this is pretty controversial, probably thing for me to say, but since I'm here, I might as well, jump. I've got the toe in the water. I might as well jump in the pool. But I've had a lot of my black friends. That's the other thing that irritates me is you can't say you have black friends, or then it's like, oh, well, you have black friends, you must not be racist. But it's like that's not what this is. I'm
Right.
just saying I have black friends who have said to me, I've suffered more discrimination through my own people and my own culture than I have from any white people I know, because I'm not black enough, or I'm not come from the right, or I don't talk a certain kind of way, or I don't. And that's just like so sad to me. Like I don't, there's a lot of pain, and it's so many layers of stuff, that
Mm,
it's a lot for me to try to understand and
mm,
take in. But do you follow that? I mean, do you
mm.
hear that? Is that something you've heard about?
Yeah, yeah. You got some blacks who are detached from black culture. They like I said, they're culturally white. So, when they come around, we're looking at them like you're basically like a white man to me. I'll be honest with you. When I deal with, especially some black conservatives, who talk white,
What does that
and
mean? Talk white. What is
talk like
talking white?
talk like white people,
Okay.
right? Like so white
You
people,
mean the vernacular, the link, the
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 the style, the tone,
yeah,
just in
when
general.
you take the bass out your voice and you make sure you pronounce every single letter in the word, that would be talking white. You know,
Okay,
black
gotcha.
people, we don't use adverbs. Um, you know, we change the language. We speak the language differently. You know what I
Right,
mean? So I can say, "Do you know what I mean?" Or I can say, "Not I mean." There's a difference, right?
right.
So sometimes you'll be around black people, from the quote unquote hood, and you won't understand a word they're saying, right? So we as black people have a different language. If you go to Jamaica, they speak something called patois. Now,
Uh,
patois is technically English, but if
yeah.
somebody started speaking patois, you'd be like, "What the hell did he just say?"
I
Right?
love it though. I love that. I love that. I
Right.
love that accent, that language.
Right. So, like
Yeah.
I said, the white liberal has done a fine job of making sure that black people become white or sound white. And that is the amalgamation of black people coming into white culture and the results of integration. We don't have our own culture. So you'll see that a lot with the upper class black liberals. You'll see that a lot with the upper class black conservatives, where they weren't around black people growing up, so they don't have the culture of menace to society or love and basketball and hip hop, right? They might not ever listen to no Jay-Z, right? They don't know what it's
Right.
like to sag their pants, right? Not saying this stuff is good, but they're detached from the greater black population.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So they
Yeah.
stand out, right? Now, I don't think they should be ostracized, but I think that they need to do a better job of getting with their people and amalgamating into our culture, because we have our own culture too. It seems like they look down upon us and our culture and our different way we speak and a different way we talk and a different way
Hmm.
we dress, and the values that we have are quite different, and they want to be white. So that's what talking white means,
Okay.
right?
Good to know. Now now I know.
Right. And that's why I said this
Right.
is all about education, right?
Yeah.
So, wait,
Interesting.
okay, so what we were talking about leading into this. Um let me
Prior
read
learning.
uh let me read some super chats really fast. Ken F, thank you.
Oh,
He
yeah.
says another great chat. Thanks to both of you for taking your time. Um he said, Justin Stone, thank you. He said, when I changed my diet, I found it easier to tap into parts of my consciousness I've experienced before. My faith in God, and I serve whatever entity that is. I'm not 100% certain, but it understands. HWO. Yeah, word. Yeah, changing the way you eat does affect your consciousness. A lot of people aren't hip to that. but it will affect. And there's one more in there. I'm just waiting for my browser to fucking update. My computer's running slow. I've been running it all day. But I'll get to that next super chat. So yeah, what was I saying before you asked about what talking? So we were talking about like your black friends and how they're treated by black people. Yeah, so I think that maybe they need to hang around black people some more, and
But I want them to hang around me.
And that's fine. That's great. That's the great part about freedom, right? Like if you feel more comfortable hanging around, Catherine and white people, I don't think you should be made fun of for that, right?
No.
But when you come around us and we say you talk white, you talk white. Now you put your finger up. Did you have something to say?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was just taking note, putting a bookmark in there.
Yeah. So
this is fascinating to me. It really is, because there's just so much there's so much going on behind the scenes that, with me, it's like it ain't that deep,
Mm-hmm.
It just, I just accept people as is. I don't have like a caliber or like, I don't have like a thermometer or a barometer or whatever you want to call it, a measuring stick to, are they white enough or do they reflect, there's a lot of different kinds of white people out there, and there are white people that don't talk a certain way. You could say, oh, well, it's the redneck culture, or it's the, whatever, but I'm from Texas, so I'm pretty cool with whoever. But I will tell you this, when I was growing up, my mom used to say, and I grew up in the valley in Texas, down in the valley, in McAllen. So on a certain given day, I would come home and I would speak like, I'd have a Hispanic accent. Mom, what are you doing? Why are we gonna eat that again? And my mom would say, stop that. Or I would come home and say, what are we gonna do? My mom would say, stop that. If you talk like a hick, people will treat you like one. So I mean, I kind of see where you're going with that. There is sort of a way that my family wanted me to represent myself, I guess, is what you could say. So, but I'm a social chameleon. So unfortunately, it's a default setting for me that whenever I'm around someone, I start to kind of lean in and share and, and get into it. If my friends from Texas call me, I am all Southern. It's just the twang starts, and, and now I'm up here in Chicago and I'm trying, it just totally different Midwest. I don't specifically like fit in. I'm pretty, outspoken and direct, and, everybody's my friend and I want to hug them and how are you, and talk to them in the shopping, line. Not anymore because of COVID. We can't, talk to each other anymore. But so I find that super interesting. Like it's such a different dynamic for me. I like it all. Like I kind of morph into whatever is going on around me. So
yeah, and so like you say, you're a chameleon. I am too, right? Like I can coalesce with white people, or I can go hang with the Bloods and the Crips. You know what I mean? Like my cousin's a Crip, right? Like I can do both. I can say both, or I can say both, right? You'll know a black person's black because they might say ax instead of ask, right? There's a difference, right? Let me ask you a question. Now, if I went around my mom and I said, let me ask you a question, she'd like, stop talking like that, right? So my mom brought me up to have the proper inflection of the voice and how to articulate myself, right? So I know how to talk white, and I use it when applicable, and I don't when I don't feel like it. Like, fuck you and what you think about me, right? But that's, again, this is that power structure creating what you're supposed to be like to be accepted, right? So when people don't fit inside that mold, we say, oh, you're a hick, or you're this, or you're that. And that's why your mom didn't like when you came home.
It's a label. Yeah,
you get labeled. So your mom was trying to protect you from the prejudice that you might face carrying the vernacular you may have, right?
I don't know. You might be overestimating my mom, because I think it just was irritating to her, and it could be. You may be right.
Subconsciously, I think that's what was happening, right? Like she said,
might be right.
Because she said to you, she said, people are going to judge you, right?
Right. People don't take you seriously if you speak like that.
Right. And that's what my mom used to tell me, if you speak like a nigga, they're going to treat you like a nigga, right? That's what she used to say. So I know how to speak both ways. And I like to do funny things. I go into corporate meetings and I'll switch from hood to white and then back and forth over and over again. And in the faces I see in these meetings, they're like, wait, who is this guy? Like they're completely confused because they don't know what to make of me. It's like he was just
Right.
talking like this, but then he used this huge vocabulary word, so he must be educated, right? So there's a way to present yourself to sound educated and still be Black. And that's what, people, might not understand, as opposed to coming out and sounding like Don Lemon. Like,
You said it, Don. You went there. Yeah, you went there.
yeah, but there are differences in culture.
Right.
We got some more super chats here.
Yep.
Spencer O'Hare said, if the Illuminati lizard men instilled trauma early in the minds of more malleable, that's what MK Ultra was all about. Media practices on this. Good point. Donna Fezio says, thank you both for this open conversation. We need this. Yeah, well, thank Catherine, because she's the one that made this happen, and she had the bravery or, common sense to make this happen. And I'm glad she reached out. I don't have a problem having a conversation with anybody. I'm not like these gatekeepers. Like, I'm not talking to you, you're white, or I'm not talking to you because you don't have enough followers. I'm not like that. I am selective with who I talk to. I don't want to talk to a nobody. But I think this conversation was relevant because of the racial climate we're in right now, because of who you are. You're a white mom. And I think me being a Black guy, this is a very interesting conversation and great conversation
It is.
to have, because it's so hard to find. You're not going to see a conversation like this, right?
No, and I think it's so important, like, just to tell the truth, even if I think the fearfulness of being honest and open and saying, I don't agree with this. And just be prepared and be braced for the onslaught or the backlash, because it's possible that I may get off of here and go back into, the real world, and people will say, why did you talk to him? Didn't you know? You're not smart enough to know about, this and this and this. And I don't care. I'm just going to put that out there right now. I don't care. I don't care, because my goal is to reach out to people that I don't understand, or I want to understand more, and just learn. I don't always, maybe I may not always agree, but at least I'm a little bit smarter than when I started the conversation. And
Yeah.
I heard you talking, about Black Lives Matter, and I heard you talking about stuff that I just don't think a lot. This is one of the things I wanted to discuss while we talked, is why I tell why don't I support Black Lives Matter publicly and write it across, make a banner on my social media. I want people to understand is it's not about, I think it's terrible messaging, for one thing. I think you could have come up with a million other ways to get the point across than those words, because it's ambiguous and it's hard to nail it down, and it makes people feel excluded while you're trying to be included. And I'm not criticizing. I 1,000% agree that Black Lives Matter. That's not the point. The point is that the movement behind Black Lives Matter and their manifesto, or what we're about, is completely contrary to what I know these people who are tagging their profiles with this. I know it's not what they believe. And I think people need to educate themselves. What are you posting on your Facebook? What are you posting on your Twitter and your Instagram? If you're saying, Black Lives Matter, they do. Of course they do. I mean, it's a duh, of course Black Lives Matter. They've always mattered to me. But when I read this, man, I've got it on my iPad, because I just don't think people understand what it is. What is Black Lives Matter? Even Black people that I know of don't know what it is. It just, they fell in, they've connected with the emotion, but they don't understand what the manifesto is, what the purpose is. And so I think it's important to know that it's, Black Lives Matter is anti-family. It's anti-Western culture. It's anti-patriarchy. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? You've seen it. You've read it. It's all about promoting things that most, Christians, that most people that sort of, I can't think of the word, not normal, that's not the right word, but just your average person doesn't line up with their values.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to be pressured by someone to say something that I don't endorse or advocate by virtue of the fact that I know who they are and I know what they're pushing for, and I'm not in it. I'm not on board with it. So I encourage everyone who's watching and who's listening not to, don't reject me out of whole cloth and say, oh, she's against Black Lives Matter. That's not what I said. But I do think you should go to the website and look at that. The first thing that's on there is defund the police. And I know how you feel about that, but that's another story. But that's their thing. People are like, oh, that's not coming from Black Lives Matter. And I'm like, it's on the front page. That's what it says. And then if you go and you click on about, if you take a minute and read what they're about, I don't see it's really super beneficial to Black lives. As far as the long term goes, I don't see how following all of those principles laid out are going to further Black families, enrich Black lives, and promote longevity for the lives of Black people. I don't get it. And I think you should read it and find out what it is you're advocating for.
Yes.
So there you go. I said it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sorry.
Yeah. I say, before a lot of people created their Twitter account, before Donald Trump decided to run for president, before you hop, into this political conversation, and before politics was pop culture, I was exposing Black Lives Matter. And I got hell for it. The only reason why I have my Twitter account today and it's not suspended is because when I was exposing Black Lives Matter, masses of people blocked me. Like even to this day, I have Black friends online and I'll just see a link and I'll just know that the person they retweeted has me blocked. So they had me blocked from 5 years ago because I was exposing Black Lives Matter and they thought I was jealous because somebody else was getting notoriety and I wasn't. And I'm just like, no, this organization isn't for us. And I told my girl recently, I said, because her friend said, hey, I want to donate to Black Lives Matter. Will you match me? And I told her, I said, yo, tell your friend that every single dollar you send to Black Lives Matter is going to go towards the destruction of the Black family. And it says it right on their screen, in their manifesto. We want to disrupt the nuclear family. How do we go from, police brutality to let's disrupt the nuclear family? Like, what are you guys doing here, right? And then there's
gender issues and all of that stuff.
Right.
What does that have to do with police brutality? And here's the thing: I personally abhor and condemn fully and totally police brutality across the board against white people, Asian people, Black people. And the police brutality is a thing. It's a problem. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be condemned. It's absolutely unacceptable. We need reform. But how are we going to reform something if if we're just taking these off ramps off of the main highway of what's important in people's lives, and we're like, Black Lives Matter, but we're going to go over here and talk about cisgender and patriarchal and da 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 da, and it's like, wait a minute, how, I don't know. For me, it's hard to, I can't make the connection.
Yeah.
And I want my friends, all of my friends, regardless of race or ethnicity or religion or whatever, I just want them to look into it before you advocate for something, before you stick it on your banner, and before you give them a commercial and free airtime. Just, is that really what you think is best for Black lives? And if it is, and that's your jam, that's great. Go for it. I'm not against it. I'm against disinformation, misinformation, misunderstanding, and things getting lost in the ether because of emotions. So, I wrote because I wanted to show solidarity with my Black friends. The first time I've ever written, I wrote a Facebook post that said, but I was going after all discrimination. Discrimination against political affiliation, wrong. Discrimination against people based on their skin color, wrong. Discrimination is not the same as prejudice. You may prejudge someone, but you're discriminating and you're canceling them, or you're wiping them off, or you discount them. That's not good, and that should be condemned. This religious, gender, any of that stuff. Discrimination is wrong. If you discriminate against people, you're not on my side. Get off my page. you know, you're out of here. And
Right.
I have a beautiful cornucopia of different colors, religions, political affiliations. I'm always open to civil discourse, but that was a firm no. If you want to discriminate against any of these groups, I'm not interested in you being interacting with me on my page.
Mm.
So that's the only time I've ever written Black Lives Matter, because I knew it was important for some people to hear that from me, because
Mm.
they think that if I don't say Black Lives Matter, then I'm dismissing them and I'm not loving them and I'm not supporting them.
Yeah,
So I did it with my teeth clenched, like, "Urgh," but only because I love them and I want them to
that's
feel
wonderful.
validated. Does
That's
that make
wonderful.
sense?
That's the most beautiful thing I heard tonight from you. You know, the fact that you did something that goes against your own personal, belief system because you cared about somebody, right? Like
Oh yeah.
that says more than anything, you know. Um, and I think people should go back and watch my Scott Adams interview to understand Black Lives Matter a little bit more and the phraseology of it all, and you'll understand it better. But yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful that you want to do that. So I want to just talk about, you being the deliverer of the message that Black Lives Matter is this sinister organization, right? And in order to do that, I have to tell another story. So I went to go see my friend the other day, and he said, his woman came in from work, and they were talking, and he was trying to tell her, "Hey, Black Lives Matter is this, George Soros run organization,"
Right.
and she blew up on him. Right? He's not a white person. Right? He's not a white male. He's not a white female. He's a black dude, and she's a black woman. But she blew up on him. Why? Because the liberal indoctrination wholly targets Black women. Black Lives Matter was started by Black women. The movement we're seeing today is predominantly Black women. Black women say we're on the front lines as if they're at a war or some shit like that. But they say, Black women are on the front lines. And it's true. When you look at who's, even when we saw that mayor get kicked out of that thing, right? That they told him,
Oh my gosh, the humiliation, the walk of shame.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
The
That was
Fry, right?
right.
Gunshot
Yeah,
Fry.
yeah,
Whew, that was brutal.
right. But that was a
She
Black woman,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. She put him in his place.
Right.
Yeah.
But you see how
I
illogical they were, though,
Oh yeah, of
and it's
course.
pure emotion, and
Right.
that's why. And that's
And
why the. Go
and
ahead.
the I'm sorry. The other thing to recognize in that I thought was very interesting was the physical intimidation, that I'm up
Mm,
here and you're down there and I'm speaking down to you. I have a microphone, you don't. Now I'm going to say this because, and people are probably going to get annoyed with me, but I kind of enjoyed that a little bit,
I did too.
a little bit,
I
just a
did
little
too.
bit,
I
a
did.
little bit enjoyed it because he's just so ineffective and he
Right.
is just such a, his little, slump shoulder, the posture of submission was so distasteful to me in a man that's supposed to be running in a major American city, that I almost I said, God forgive me, because I know I'm not supposed to take joy in other people's humiliation, but he kind of deserved it. But I see what you're saying. She was up here, he was down there, she had a
Hmm.
mic, he was not, and she put it to him
Hmm.
and backed him into a corner of his own making. If we're
Hmm.
fair, he put
Hmm.
himself there.
He
He didn't have
did.
to go down there. He
Mm-mm.
didn't have to go down there, and he shouldn't have left. He should have told her, "Look, lady, you know what? I hear you, but I'm not abolishing the police, and I'm the mayor of this city, and I hate that you don't like what I'm doing, but I was elected to run this city, and this is what I'm choosing to do." He didn't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
He melted like a, chocolate on a hot sidewalk, and it was just like, ooh, it was hard. It was hard to watch, but I kind of enjoyed it a little bit.
I enjoyed it because he tried to do his best job to pander the whole day, right? Like, oh, I'm
Yes.
gonna do the dance with you and all this stuff, and it's like, oh, you did all that, and they still kicked you out.
And he
That's what you
still
get,
got,
stupid.
because it's never going to be enough. It's never
Right,
enough. Yeah,
right,
it's never
yeah.
enough.
So,
Yeah, but yeah,
so
I
yeah,
see what
so
you're
that's
saying.
an example that Black women are wholly in charge of I hate to use this, but the Black Revolution, whatever you want to call that, we have this Black movement, which is wholly not about Black people, but they'll use the effeminate Black male, like they'll write articles and say, Black men are the white people of Black people, right? This is
Ooh,
articles.
people say that?
Black
Yikes.
Black media that's funded by Huffington Post, right? So
Okay,
again, the media, right?
right.
Even when you go on YouTube and just type in Hotep, the first thing that pops up is Huffington Post funded propaganda that is pure Hotep libel, and
Really?
yeah.
Well, that's not the first thing that popped up when I Googled it.
Would you get?
I got the Hotep Nation came
Okay,
up first, and your name
wonderful,
too. So,
wonderful.
but
So
I
that's
use
because
DuckDuckGo, so sometimes
okay,
I've
yeah,
learned.
DuckDuckGo's more honest, right? You notice
Yeah,
that difference? Yeah, if you were to
I've
Google that,
learned.
it's different. Yeah,
Listen, I'm not I'm not just another pretty face. I do my research.
yeah,
I well, you know what I mean.
right.
I'm not. I'm well tuned into the fact that there's a battle on for our minds.
Hmm.
There's a battle on for our minds, and all of the high tech companies are they're having a heyday with it. So
Hmm.
that's why I never look at the first results on any search. I wait, I go more results, more results, more
Yeah,
results. I get down to where it starts to get real again,
yeah,
where they haven't bumped everything up in the algorithm to tell me what I want or what they want me to see. But
yeah.
but yeah, you did come up first. Hotep Nation came up first, but
Awesome.
I know what you're talking about. Is
Yeah.
there's a manipulation going on, and it's trying to belittle or they want to deplatform you and take away your voice.
Right. And that's what we have here. And that's why, the Black community doesn't have diversity of thought because people like me are blackballed. But, the point was to say that if a Black man is going to have an argument with his own wife and where she's defending this Black Lives Matter organization with no research into the organization whatsoever, you can start to imagine why a white person can't begin to educate a Black person on this topic at all. You're just going to look like a racist, white individual. The only person that can take this battle on is probably the Hoteps, right? Because, we're going to tell people, shut up and listen or, get out the way, but we're wholly spreading facts. So I don't think there's anything you can do as far as trying to educate Black people, unless, like we said in the beginning of this cast, are they coming to learn and wanting to find middle
Right.
ground, or are they
Yeah.
coming because they just are automatically hate you from the time they saw your face?
Well, to clarify, I came on not because I wanted to educate Black people, but because I wanted to learn how to interact in a productive way but without becoming defensive or without allowing myself to be disrespected.
Mm,
And and is that even worth doing? If my silence is violence,
mm,
is that I guess you know what I mean.
absolutely.
I think I don't need to tell other people what to think about Black Lives Matter. I'm more talking to my white counterparts that are trying to co-opt that in a like a solidarity thing or you know I don't think anybody is I don't think a lot of people are aware of what it is, but I also want to make sure that my Black friends and family know that I love them and their lives matter to me. And
Yeah.
I wish they would have picked a different phrase. And I wish there, you know, can I
It's a
ask you
terrible phrase. Go
let
ahead.
me ask you a really frank question here. And I know I'm putting myself out there for a load of, backlash, but I think it's important to ask this. So when these kinds of things happen, when there's a police shooting or something happens, it seems like we all are talking about solutions. What can we do? And I can tell you from my perspective as a white woman, which doesn't really matter to a lot of people, but since we're talking about it, I feel like it's the same. It's like trying to fix the problem by doing the same thing and expecting different results. So when I saw and I mean no disrespect. I know it's going to come across like I do, but I don't. But it's like Benjamin Crump came in and was going to be the family's attorney. And I thought to myself, when did he win cases for people? How is he an effective lawyer? like, why him? And then, then Al Sharpton came, and I don't know what, I don't know the deep thing, but what I see him do is come in and talk a lot and make a lot of statements that I know are very emotionally charged, and that they matter to people, and it's important for people to grieve the way they need to grieve. I respect that. And then I saw him, get on a private jet and fly away, and I just felt like, how do we fix this? Not by doing the same things over and over, but by bringing a new guy, bring in, like, let's nail this sucker. We don't want this guy to get off, right? We don't want him to make mistakes and have this officer get off on a technicality or get out lawyered by somebody, or I don't know. It just made me angry on behalf of the family. I mean, but they hired him, and they obviously want him, and I don't understand that, and I don't have to, but I felt like it was puzzling to me.
I said,
I want to win. I want
yeah,
them to have a win.
yeah. I said the same
So
thing. I said the same thing
is that wrong for me to say? Am I going to get in trouble for saying
no,
that?
no. I said the same thing. When I saw Crump was behind this, I said, "Oh, here we go again." Because, like you said, he doesn't have a winning record. Again, he does not have a winning record.
He has a record of doing things that are kind of underhanded and shady.
Yes.
And I don't know that a lot of people know that, but he doesn't operate,
He's connected to Sean King. We have to understand that every time Sean King's in the picture, anytime Sean King's in the picture, it seems like Crump's in the picture, and they're partners in some sort of way. I don't know the specifics. I don't look at it, but I know where you see Sean King, you see Crump. Where you see Crump, you see Sean King. So yes. So again, this is what's happening, right? So cop kills a black guy. Instead of us saying, hey, let's make sure we arrest these individuals and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, it becomes Catherine Kingsbury's problem, right? And her family's problem, right? And this is like, no, they didn't kill George Floyd, right? We have to stay focused on the individuals, because what happens is, I was talking to a black girl exactly about this, and she DM'd me and she said, did you know that, I forget which murder it was, but she's like, did you know that the cops that murdered that kid are still on the force? Like, we see them walking down the street, they're still on the force. And I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I suspected that because, we saw Trump lost the case, right? But they are still police on the beat. So the point of that is the fact that if I kill an individual and I look back at all the people that did the same crime I did and none of them went to jail, I don't feel like I'm at risk to be prosecuted, because nobody made an example of the last few guys. And that's the problem here. Every time this happens, the people that do this are never met with justice. They always slip through the cracks because the message turns into riots and protests and everything else but these cops. And that's a huge problem.
Right. I agree. And that's another one of those things that it's like, it's not for me to say, other than I want to win. I want a win for the family. I want to win for the community. Bring in your best guy and nail these guys, nail them to the fullest extent of the law, make an example of them, and I hope that happens. And maybe it will, maybe this will be the time, but I don't know. It surprised me when that happened, just because I don't understand it. And it's not for me to understand, it's for me to pray on and believe that, justice will be done. And that's what I'm doing. I feel like that's my most powerful tool in my tool belt, for me personally, is to just bring God into it and ask, that the justice will be served, and that, that this won't be another one of the same old. It's important, it needs to be addressed, and police brutality needs to be addressed, and the state of policing in general needs to be addressed. But it's a distraction when other things happen that take the focus off of, of the crime and the criminals, and make it about other things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Do you have any more questions? Concerns?
Nope, I don't think so. I mean, I have a whole page of stuff here, but we don't have to go down that road.
Look at your page of notes. Let's tackle like maybe 2 or 3 more items if you got them, and then
Okay.
I'm just a little hungry. I haven't
Are you
eaten.
hungry? Now,
Yeah.
I saw you talking to Uncle Hotep and you're eating while talking, so I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Um, Couple of things. I'm interested in your take on like third wave feminism
Mm, trash.
because here, well, this happened. My daughter decided to make a project. She was told to make a project of who was her hero and who was the person she wanted to emulate in her profession. And she said, my mom, because she stays home. She's been staying home with me, and she's homeschooled me for a year here and there, and she does this and she does that, and they rejected her submission and said, go back and find a real profession that's actually a job, that. And I can't tell you how many feminists or whatever you want to call them have roasted me for talking about being home with my kids and
Mm.
not choosing I have a home-based business. I have a custom apparel business. 33 King Brandon Bling. I'm gonna shout my business out. But so
Say
I
it
do
twice. Say your business twice, 3 times. Yeah.
33 King Brandon Bling. I do custom apparel and a lot of like Swarovski crystal laying and all this different like specialty materials. But so I work from home so that I can be there for my kids and go pick them up when be the first face they see after school, talk to them about their day. This is a decision we made. We made a lot of sacrifices early on so that I could stay home with my kids. And I'm not ashamed of that, but there's a lot of people who would shame you for it or look down on you for doing that. I feel like it's a total flip flop because I had these kids and I intend on raising them, you know, the way that I see fit. But then you have a lot of feminists who come into the picture and belittle women who are taking care of their kids
Mm,
as a stay-home parent.
mm,
And I feel like it's very frustrating for me and a lot of other moms, even working moms, who are being made to feel like they have to have a job, have a career, have this, have that. And if you don't, then you're a failure. If
mm,
you're just a mom, then
mm,
you failed at being a woman because
mm,
all you did was, make a sandwich for your husband. And, I get grief for saying that I wait on my husband and that I, love to spoil him and that he's on my phone when he calls, it says king of the castle. Like that's just how I see. You can't have a ship without a captain and a co-captain. Two people can't captain the same ship. It wouldn't work. So that's my anyway, I'm going on
yeah.
and on, but that's a problem for me, is the whole feminist ideology that's trying to emasculate my young sons
Mm,
and tell my daughter that she can't look up to me as a
mm,
mom because that's not a real profession
mm.
or a real
So,
job.
so, so it's the same problem with Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matter is definitely a feminist organization. Feminism and Black Lives Matter have the same donors, they have the same funders, they have the same
Oh,
master. It's the
okay.
same. It's the same group, pretty much. They and so in order to understand Black Lives Matter, you have to understand that they prey on the weak. If you look at the Black Lives Matter website, they talk about um, trans people, people who have a problem with gender, people are handicapped, um, but socialism historically preys on the weak. And I'm not talking about like Socialist Workers Party because that's a different thing. But socialism preys on the weak and then tries to empower them. And then they use the weak to attack the rest of us. Right. And the reason why I bring that up is because hurt people hurt people. So a lot of the women in feminism are just hurt individuals who have had bad experiences with men. For example, Jamila Lemieux, who spews a lot of Black male hate. Um, her history is the fact that while she was pregnant, her husband left her and got married to another woman. So she just naturally has this disdain for Black men. And her father was there her whole life. So I don't know what her relationship with father was. I thought it was good. But, she just has this rhetoric where she just hates Black men. But again, it's hurt people, and the socialists know these people are hurt and they're like, oh, come here, let me help you out. you know.
Interesting. That's
And
very interesting.
yeah, so again, this is another group. When I look at feminists, I look at them the same way as I look at Black people. I feel sorry for them. I'm like, somebody hurt you somewhere along the way, and now you're being misled to um inflict pain upon others as a way of revenge, right? Like it's
Or
just
even identify with your hurt as your identity.
right.
Be the victim that you deserve to be, which I hate, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't, that's one of my big, things is, when you get to a certain age, it's not your mama's fault and it's not your daddy's fault. It's not your childhood's fault. And it's not that guy who did that to you's fault. It's you making decisions for you as you move forward. So, but I have compassion for people that are hurting. But I see a lot of people being taught to identify with their pain,
Yes.
which is a complete, it's just like putting the stick in the spoke of the bicycle and wrecking yourself on purpose, but that's just what's taught to some people, is that if you're a victim, you have every right to be a victim. And I hate that. I was in a plane crash when I was a kid. And
Mm.
for so many years, people would say, "Oh, I bet you don't like to fly. You have every right to be afraid of flying." And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I have every right to be afraid." And I was, because I felt I had the right. And at some point, thank God, the light bulb went off. And I realized that I didn't want to be afraid because I had the right to be afraid. I wanted to be healthy and I wanted to be well and I wanted to go places. Just
Mm.
because I have a right to be afraid doesn't mean I should continue in fear. So I flipped the switch,
Mm.
and now I fly on airplanes. Do I love it? Not really, but do I enjoy going places? Totally.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that's just something, an aside, which is when you tell a group of people you have every right to feel angry, you have every right to be filled with rage and upset, and then they tell them that that's righteous and that they should act out that feeling, then it's hugely problematic, because no one is so blind as those who just won't see.
Right. Let me grab some super chats here. Justin Stone, I think Donna Fazio, thank you for $20 super chat. I think I read that one. Thank you both for this open conversation. We need this. Justin Stone, $2 super chat. He said, had to search for this stream. It wasn't in subs. Huh? Solar Bear, $5 super chat. He said, praise Oprah, praise Williams sisters, praise Michelle Obama. You're being facetious. Freak Mac, $3 super chat. He says, just read Black Lives Matter about page. Wow. And Brian
Yeah.
Love, $1 super chat. Thank you. Yeah, all you gotta do is go look at the website. I mean, that's how I found out about Black Lives Matter. I just went to the website and I was like, wait,
Right there. Yeah.
it said originally it said in the villages section, it said it said women, mothers, parents, children. And I'm like, wait, mothers, parents, children. I mean, you mean mother,
Yeah.
father, child?
No.
They omitted men, and that's when I knew something was up.
No, I went through this and I was just blown away.
Mhm.
It's like women shouldn't have to do double shifts raising their children. So we're just going to go ahead and parent for you. And I was like, no, that's not the way it's meant to be. I want to parent my own children. And
Mhm.
and the other thing I thought of, which I think is probably going to be a little controversial, is if you took this manifesto or this about and you insert the word white everywhere you see the word black, there would be it would just be like,
The KKK.
people's heads would just,
Yeah.
explode,
Yeah.
because, or any other, doesn't have to be white,
Yeah.
Latino lives matter, Asian lives matter. If any of this stuff was said and you
Mm.
stuck their, you know, ethnicity into where the black word is, it's just like, who, it would seem so outrageous. Like, well, it
Mm.
does seem outrageous to me, but it would seem so like there would be so much clutching of pearls and fainting couches happening, that people
Mm.
were saying this kind of stuff if it was
Right.
any other group of people. And
Absolutely.
so I'm glad that really, if one person looked that up and read it and said, wow, then my work here is done.
Yeah.
Then I did something good. you
Yeah.
know because and all, like I said, if you agree with it and it's your jam, great.
Right.
But just be sure you know where you're sending your hard-earned dollars, and where you're aligning yourself, if you're a Christian, or if you're a person of faith, or if you're a person who is all about your family. just know who you're advocating for.
Absolutely.
I've beaten this horse dead now.
So let's tackle one more issue and then I'm gonna cut out if you got one.
Yeah, go for it. I think let's see. Oh, I know. White fragility.
Okay.
Let's talk about that.
All right.
Let's talk about the Karen thing. Let's just get that out in the open.
Okay.
You could say that at times I've asked for the manager. I've also been in a restaurant when a Black woman asked for the manager, you know. So I don't know, that's a thing that gets on my nerves, is now every time I do anything assertive, or every time I'm trying to utilize my own personal power, okay, Karen, and I'm going to be super transparent. When I was in my gosh, I wasn't even 20 years old. I was in Dallas and I was assaulted by a group of Black guys, and it was awful, scary, and was a traumatic experience, right? And you know, I've overcome a lot in my lifetime, as I say, but I never went back and was like, oh, all Black guys are bad. And, I don't do that. I don't have a problem with Black people or Black men, because those Black men did a bad thing. All Black men didn't do anything to me. But what bothers me now is if somebody like me, if this happened again, if we push the rewind button and this happened to my daughter, say, in this culture, in this day and age, she would be afraid to speak out because she would be perceived as trying to get someone in trouble or being a Karen, or, like, I think it's dangerous. I think we have to be really careful how we, is that the new normal? Like, can people just do what they want, with, you know, without any kind of, you can't tell on someone doing something, because then all of a sudden you are being racist, even if you were victimized by someone who was Black, or you reverse it, it doesn't really matter. That whole Karen thing gets on my nerves because it's a way to shut me up. Okay, Karen.
Yeah. So let's dissect that, right? I understand the concern. I think there could be some room for cause for concern, but I definitely think that the Karen thing is just an internet meme. I don't think it's something that will heavily carry over into real life. I also think it's very circumstantial, right? So when we saw that white woman, pretend like this Black guy was bothering her in Central Park.
That was absurd, of course.
Right. Yeah. So that's like the epitome of a Karen, right? And I think that he was being a Karen too, right? Like, you're walking around with dog snacks and you don't have a dog, so you're like trying to like catch people doing, walking around like so he was being a Karen, right? Like, you're Karen too, dude. You know what I mean?
They were both acting like toddlers. I mean, right. I'm sorry, but it was immaturity to go around on both parts.
Right.
So,
right. So,
but mostly hers.
What I'm saying is, if you were in a video and you were going off on a manager and there was no context provided, you'd be deemed a Karen. Now, if there was context provided and you were in the right, I don't think people would take away your ability to be assertive. You know what I mean? If you were at Macy's, right, and you had a legitimate gripe with whatever happened at the department store, I don't think, you would have a problem. But I do think that, thing of the Karen or whatever is a real thing,
I do too.
That persona it scarred me for a really long time. Like, I still have a fear of white women, right? Like, when I'm around white women, like, I don't know if I want to give you a hug, right? Because I don't know if you're going to accuse me of rape. And
wow,
because I've been in situations where, for example, I remember one time this white girl came on to me, and I was dating her friend at the time, right? And this girl was hotter than the girl I was kind of dating, but I wasn't, the girl I was dating, we were just like messing around. It wasn't like a serious relationship. And then her friend came on to me while they were at my house. And the third friend opens the door and sees us like messing around. So the girl screams, like, I pressed her into it. I was like, oh, wow. Like, you grabbed onto me, like you came at me And as soon as your friends saw us, because you didn't want to get in trouble, you made it seem like I was this bad guy, right? And, you know, for example, when I was in corporate America, you know, sometimes I speak passionately and, you know, they'll say things like, oh, I'm intimidated by him. He can't work here anymore, right? I've been fired from at least 5 jobs because of white women.
Wow.
In
That's
fact,
awful.
the last job I ever had was because of a white female feminist. They lost that job because of a white female feminist. And I told myself I'll never go back to work for somebody else again because I am sick of white women. And to tell you that story, you know, she was the type that was like, oh, you know, don't mansplain things to me, so on and so forth, right?
I think that's ridiculous.
But we were in the
Yeah.
office, and startup life is a little bit different, right? Like you could be in a 25 by 25 box with 7 employees, right?
Yeah.
You could be crammed, right? So the boss is there, you know, the dev guy is there, and everybody's all in the same room.
Right.
And, you know, so I'm sitting next to across from a white girl, and she worked under me, right? I was her boss, so to speak. And she didn't like that. But we were talking, and I was I know how to blog. I had a blog that did millions of hits, and you know got me to the place I am now. So I understand blogging, how to blog, and I was trying to explain to her, you know, download this piece of software, and this is going to help with SEO, and this is what this means. I was explaining to her the Yoast plugin, and in the Yoast plugin is a red light, yellow light, and green light. If it's green light, you wrote the post, great. So she's like, why is this relevant? Why do I need to pay attention to this stuff? And she started getting real antsy, and I just kept my calm. But she was doing the thing where she's talking to me, but her eyes are looking at the big boss, right? So she's like, I shouldn't have to do this, da 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 da, like kind of like gesturing to him to, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, you know, like this is just, you know, best practices, and so she was getting loud and making it seem like, and then challenging everything I was saying. Right now, we had just got an intern, and this intern is also a female, but this intern I think was more of like the Asian variety. But the intern saw how she got. So the intern's now challenging me. So now I got 2 women of lighter skin. One's white, one's Asian, who just is in, you know, coming out of university. So she's under liberal indoctrination, and they're attacking me now. And I was just like, you know what, guys, let's have this conversation another time. And I just ended it like that.
Right.
And then I was like, you know what, I can't do this shit no more. If I'm going to be in a job, I got to be the boss. I got to call the shots, because I would have just fired her. You know what I mean? Like if it was my situation. And the sad part is, you know, I came back to the big boss and I said, yo, this girl's not exactly cooperative. And he told me, well, figure it out. Right. And I thought that was just terrible of him as a white guy to say to a black guy, you know what I mean? Or just an employee, period. Race has nothing to do with it. But to say, you know, figure it out. But I'm saying all this to say that I personally, in my life, throughout life, starting from about 3rd grade to the last job I worked a few years ago, have had horrible experiences with the so-called Karen. And have been fired from so many jobs because of the so-called Karen. So there is, you know, so when you say to me, right, when you say to me, you don't like the Karen thing, that's when I become like the black liberal and go, boo-hoo, right? Boo-hoo, you don't like to be called Karen. I don't like to be accused of rape when I didn't do anything. I don't like to be, you know, fired and not be able to provide for my family because you want to be racist or you want to be a feminist, right? And that's where the black community comes up.
She did that.
Right. And that's where the black community, right. And that's where the black community sometimes comes back and goes, oh, boo-hoo, you don't like being called Karen, blah, 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 because we've had to deal with much worse. Like if you're called a Karen, that don't change your life any. But if I'm accused of rape, I can go to jail for that.
That's a good point.
If I am at the workplace and this white woman says I intimidate her and I'm fired, you're taking food out of my kid's mouth. I had to struggle for months to just get by, but because of some of this stuff, you know, over the course of a few years, over the course of the past, I want to say 2 decades. You know, when I became an adult at the age of 18 in 1998, till now in 2020, I've had to deal with white women. For example, when I worked at Olive Garden, white women used to go outside and do coke. I didn't care. That was your thing. You want to go outside with the white manager and do coke, that's your thing. But then when something occurred inside the restaurant, you wanted to place the blame on me. Right. And it's like, no, you was outside doing coke. That's your problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then they'll just find things like, oh, you know, Brian did this, or he makes me feel. This is what they would say. The same girl that did coke would come in and say, Brian makes me feel uncomfortable. And me being a nice guy I could have told the big boss, yeah, she was doing coke outside last week, dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's my point with the whole Karen thing. It's like it's not going to affect your life like that. But the Karen affects my life a lot.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Would you like me to kiss your feet or anything?
Hell no.
Is there anything I can do? I mean, no.
Hell no. No, that's not,
no.
You know, like
not to diminish what you're saying, because I want you to know that I accept what you're saying, and I hate that happened, you know, and I've seen examples of that, you know, in my own life, you know, but I mean, women are catty to other women too. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not saying that that's not an issue for you, because obviously that's your reality. Those are your life experiences have happened to you. I guess you're right. Boo hoo, you know, too bad for me. But not all, I feel like we have to be really careful, because you could flip that around. I could say the same thing about those guys that assaulted me, you know, and just say every black guy is after trying to, you know, reach down my shirt and overpower me and intimidate me. But everyone isn't painted with the same broad brush. Right. You know, and I think that's a big problem that we have in discourse in general, is all the cops are, you know, brutalizing people. All the black people are Black Lives Matter activists. All the white people are, you know, the women are whiny, complaining, and they want to throw everybody under the bus. And all of the toxic men are ruining it for everybody else. I certainly like a masculine man. I don't believe in toxic masculinity, and I think man spreading happens just because of anatomy. But you know, in general, I feel like that's one of the things that we do. All Christians are hypocrites. All such and such or this kind of way, and I think it's damaging to society and to discourse, you know, in general. Doesn't mean you don't have a right to your feelings. Just like it doesn't mean I shouldn't want to fly on an airplane because it fell out of the sky and it crashed. Right. So, you know, I don't like airplanes now. So it's kind of a similar, it's like your little amygdala, your little, you know, your primitive brain sets these, sets the dial. Yeah. And whenever something happens in your life that the primitive brain is like, oh, we got to send out the endorphins and all the adrenaline and all the bad chemicals. It's kind of like you can't help it. You know, you have to retrain your brain. And, you know, so yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Point taken.
I think that's a great place to, you know, to end this. I think it's a great conversation. Yeah. I know you have a whole bunch of notes. We might want to turn this into a series, Mall Talks with Hotep Jesus or whatever.
I'm in.
Know, but you know, maybe
I appreciate you so much.
No, absolutely. You know, I think that if we don't have these conversations, or I feel like if I don't have this conversation with you, the conversation doesn't happen, right?
Right.
And the conversation needs to happen. Like, you need to understand why the Karen thing is, and I need to understand why you don't like the Karen thing, and the thing with the children, and then the thing with white men being attacked. Like, these things have to be talked about. And I think the problem is, without conversation, there's no room for nuance, and nuance has been removed in the conversation.
That's for sure. Thank you so much. Blessings on everything you do.
Thank you. You too. Go ahead and tell the people where they can connect with your business.
I actually just have people connect with me on Twitter.
Okay.
I'm at Catherine Kingsbury at one Cat King. So if you just want to reach out to me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook, whatever.
Cool.
Or don't. That's okay too.
All right. In the next 24 hours, I'll go ahead and update the description box with her Twitter link, so you guys can connect with her. But if you follow me on Twitter, this stream was posted with her Twitter @name. You can follow her, connect with her, and, you know, patronize her business. But Catherine, thank you very much for the conversation. I think this was great.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
Take care.